Bwiti is a spiritual practice that forest-dwelling tribes of West Africa have been observing for untold millennia. At the center of this practice is the Iboga root, a plant indigenous to West Africa with powerful psychoactive effects which can last for days. Initiates are believed to commune with the dead, and it is believed to heal many ailments. Many locals consider this ancient practice witchcraft today. But Westerners have been increasingly drawn to Bwiti and the mysterious Iboga plant to cure a widespread modern affliction.
The opioid crisis may be far worse than initially thought.
We've interviewed lawmakers on the left and the right. They all say opioid addiction is a problem.
Many believe that this hallucinogenic root is the key to curing addiction.
You know, there's no other compound that will stop somebody from physically withdrawing on opiates. It's the only one.
Now science is rigorously testing this hypothesis. Biotech companies are creating analogs of Ibogaine, the primary component of the plant, and pushing for FDA approval to help curb the disastrous effects of the opioid epidemic. If successful, this mysterious compound could have the power to heal millions while seriously disrupting the multi-billion-dollar opioid market. In the US alone, over 81,000 drug overdose deaths occurred between 2019 and 2020. As more data comes in, that number is expected to be higher, and the CDC estimates that overdoses will exceed 100,000 in 2021. The situation couldn't be more urgent, and addicts are increasingly turning to Iboga after trying everything else to kick their habits. Usually, they hear it from word of mouth, and they have to travel abroad since the substance remains illegal in the United States. A cottage industry has formed in all corners of the world where Iboga is not regulated.
This is the place people come when, you know, they've tried everything else, and fortunately it's something that really works for them. Thank you, Mother Nature, for creating Iboga and giving us a tool to go deep inside of ourselves.
Levi Barker has embraced the Bwiti traditions and now runs a shamanistic healing center in Costa Rica called Iboga Wellness. A former addict himself, he knows the power of the plant firsthand.
I was kind of the first generation of the opioid epidemic that came through. I had a snowboarding accident when I was 19, got prescribed some Percocet, you know, started taking them, started liking them, kept growing from there, and went through, you know, every opioid pill you could imagine. And eventually that led to heroin as well. And so a dear friend of mine mentioned Iboga. I was able to just lay there and let it come in and cleanse me. And so I woke up that next day physically free of drugs. And so I knew from that point forward that I wanted to work with it.
So Levi, tell me, what exactly do we know about this plant and how it works?
With a lot of psychedelics, nobody's exactly sure how it works, but at least here, you keep seeing people come in and getting healed for a wide variety of issues. You know, it does work because it changes lives and people report back.
Just as with the original Bwiti, the detox process lasts days and involves a carefully crafted setting as patients ingest the plant.
People come and get the treatment. They have some time afterwards where they get the proper coaching, and then definitely some aftercare involved. And, you know, it's just a long process, especially when you're dealing with opiate addicts. I mean, that's at least a 3 to 6 day, you know, process for them.
but sending every addict abroad for a week-long journey to kick their addiction just isn't practical. And if it's ever possible to scale this to the level we would need to make a dent in the epidemic, we're going to need the help of modern medicine.
My name is Andrew Krugel. I am a medicinal chemist and entrepreneur.
Okay, help me understand the difference between Iboga and Ibogaine.
Ibogaine is the major active constituent of the Tabernanthe Iboga plant. So the plant itself contains a number of different psychoactive compounds, and Ibogaine is the most well-known of those. That was first noted by a man named Howard Lotsof in the 1960s, who had a long history of addiction to heroin, and he visited Western Africa looking for potential ways to treat his affliction, and he ended up going through an Iboga ceremony with the native people there and found himself cured of his heroin addiction. He brought that knowledge back to the West and popularized it.
But just as soon as it was popularized, it was labeled dangerous with no medical use.
In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
It got pulled in with all the other psychoactive compounds into the Schedule 1 classification at that time, despite the fact that there's no real history of abuse of Ibogaine for recreational purposes. In fact, the Ibogaine trip is not really a recreational experience at all.
The drug's legal status is only one of its hurdles. There are also some serious safety concerns, including its high toxicity levels and a tendency to induce cardiac arrhythmias, which in rare circumstances have resulted in death.
Ibogaine blocks a ion channel in the heart called the hERG channel, and blocking this ion channel can cause what's called QT prolongation. So the part of the heart rhythm gets elongated, and that has led to some deaths under the sort of uncontrolled circumstances in which it's used. We think that Ibogaine itself, under a more controlled setting with proper EKG monitoring, could be safe enough already to use, but with our novel analogs, we're trying to reduce inhibition of that hERG channel and thereby attenuate those cardiac risks.
But for many people desperate to kick their addiction, they're already willing to take that risk. In recent years, Levi's clinic has seen a surge in clients looking for help with more than just opioid addiction.
We have people come here for overeating. Some people have sex or porn addictions. People get addicted to thinking in the past, or they grow up with different belief systems that just filters their whole worldview.
And this is really where science hits a blind spot, since no large clinical trials have taken place with Ibogaine, and anecdotes like Levi's are not going to get far when it comes to FDA approvals.
There is certainly a large amount of anecdotal data to support its efficacy, and those small trials and anecdotes support it being extremely efficacious, not just in opioid addiction, but also in alcoholism, psychostimulant addiction, etc. But it's never been tested in a serious trial with hundreds of patients and appropriate controls. So until that's done, we can't say with any certainty that this is actually going to work.
So there's this study published in December of 2020. It's a non-toxic Ibogaine analog that separates the psychoactive effects from the anti-addictive properties. It was successfully tested on rodents, which is a long way from being tested on humans. Now, do you think there's a need for the psychoactive element for this drug to properly work? Or can we just extract these molecules, separate them, and take what we need?
So I think that's the big question to answer, not just in Ibogaine research, but in psychedelic research across the board. Whether the higher level cognitive experience of a hallucinogenic transformative experience is what drives the efficacy, or if it's simply underlying neurobiological changes that we're not really aware of at the conscious level. And I think it's possible that both things are important. You might be aware of this transformative psychedelic experience while you're on the drug, but behind the scenes, there may also be a resetting of your reward circuitry and effects on nerve growth factors in the nucleus accumbens or the ventral tegmental area that actually physically reset some of the bad connectivity that is developed as a result of an addictive history. But we don't really understand the neurobiological underpinnings of human consciousness. trying to unravel that mystery is sort of also unraveling the mystery of what makes us human, right?
That mystery is not scaring away investors, who not only firmly believe in Ibogaine's efficacy, but aim to cut into the profits that Big Pharma has reaped for years off of opioid addiction.
The addiction industry in the US is a $42 billion market, and that market is expected to grow to about $54 billion by 2025. The growing size of the opioid use disorder market is what's actually incited a lot of the psychedelic biotechs to address this gap in the market.
But the substance is very understudied and it remains a Schedule I drug. Doesn't that make it kind of a risky bet for you?
There's no doubt that when it comes to the psychedelics that are currently at the forefront of research, that Ibogaine is amongst the most riskiest ones. But what's also happened over the last 3 years is there's been a phenomenal amount of research done with new chemical entities that have de-risked it drastically. So if it's something that's de-risked in a very big way and yet is incredibly efficacious to fight these cravings and addictive qualities that a lot are suffering from, that's immense progress. And that is something that we're going to bet on.
So how do you get this substance descheduled and scaled out to treat the epidemic?
If we can actually show the efficacy rates with very low toxicity and very little harm, it will naturally get through the required clinical stages. And once it gets through those clinical stages, there's no doubt in our minds, at least I strongly believe, that the DEA will ultimately have to take it off the Schedule I abuse list.
Are you at all concerned about losing the Bwiti's original shamanistic intent of this plant with that sort of modern medical approach?
You know, we have a lot to be thankful for to a lot of the indigenous communities around the world that have shown us these medicines, right? Ibogaine in particular. But, you know, what was revered once as something that was truly magical is yet coming to the forefront, you know, with all the research that's going on. And you know, as Arthur C. Clarke himself put it, magic is just science that we don't understand yet.